In 1990, NASA launched the Hubble telescope, which orbits around Earth and creates high-resolution images of the universe. The Hubble telescope reveals information about the birth of this universe and helps create an understanding of the formation of planets in the galaxy. Telescopes continue to probe different parts of the universe and pave the way for a new understanding of the world that people live in. The sensational device dates back to 400 years ago when Galileo created his own version of the telescope using his own scientific findings rather than traditional science. Galileo resumed a large-scale scientific revolution that changed the way people understood the universe by enhancing the telescope, challenging the Catholic Church, and fighting for his beliefs with incredible determination and bravery. Galileo revolutionized science by improving and enhancing the already invented telescope, which allowed him to see farther into space. He started with the spyglass, used his current knowledge about lenses, and began to create his own lenses and arrays. He knew how convex and concave lenses worked, and how distance could help magnify the image. Since the telescope was an entirely new invention, Galileo created the telescope through a meticulous trial and error process. It took numerous attempts to get the distance and sizes correct. At first, he was able to magnify objects to the 8th power, but eventually, he was able to increase the magnification to much greater. His ability to take a simple spyglass and transform it through extensive trial and error demonstrates both his determination and his ingenuity. Then, he did something extraordinary. He pointed his telescope towards the heavens and was able to make discoveries through observation and reason that had not been possible before. Galileo discovered stars, sunspots on the sun, the phases of Venus, the full moons of Jupiter, and uncovered the true surface of the moon. According to Aristotle's principles, the moon was smooth, even, and perfectly spherical. However, thanks to Galileo, we know today that the moon is rough and crowded with depression and bulges. Another contradiction found were the star-like objects around Jupiter, which discredited the Ptolemaic model. Galileo also found that Venus went through phases similar to the moon and newly discovered stars in the Milky Way. Furthermore, he observed bumps next to Saturn, which eventually turned out to be Saturn's rings. He took extensive notes on his findings and published his discoveries in the Starry Messenger in 1610. It was quite successful and spread throughout Europe, which infuriated religious officials. However, more importantly, these observations laid the foundation for decades of astronomers. Galileo's observations proved to be surprisingly accurate and set a precedent for astronomers today. Without his scientific drive and perseverance, much of the universe would remain a mystery. These revelations contributed as evidence of a heliocentric theory. After Galileo discovered evidence of the heliocentric theory, Galileo silently challenged the Catholic Church, defying tradition and proving the heliocentric theory proposed by Copernicus. For thousands of years, the Catholic Church believed in the geocentric theory, belief in which the Earth was the center of the universe. The Church adhered to a literal translation of the Bible and therefore clung to tradition. They believed that since God created man and Earth, and that mankind was so perfect, he made Earth the center of the universe. They opposed the teachings of any other theory because it contradicted their beliefs. In their perspective, any alternative theories presented a threat to the Church, drawing people away from the Catholic Church and diminishing belief in the traditional view of God and the Bible. Theories on the solar system up until a mere 400 years ago were based solely from observation through the naked eye. From these observations, they believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. Those who undermined the geocentric theory would be called to Rome to face the Inquisition. Galileo, however, was not the first person to believe of a sun-centered universe. Other scientists, such as Copernicus, also argued of a sun-centered universe and was condemned for it. Copernicus based his concept on the daily rising and setting of the sun, moon, and stars being due to a revolution of the Earth. Kepler was another to expand on Copernicus's beliefs, proving that ellipses occur to the planets moving in orbits, and that a planet's orbit is proportional to the distance of the sun. Even though Kepler was a devout man, his teachings were still banned, as the Church found them blasphemous. At first, before finding his courage, this discouraged Galileo from promoting Copernicus' teachings and from publishing his own books. Galileo was further distinguished by a scientific method which often drew from previous astronomers and independent thinkers, yet did not always feel comfortable openly agreeing with them. For example, he was hesitant to admit he supported Kepler. In a letter Galileo composed to Kepler, he stated, I accepted the Copernican position several years ago, and discovered from thence the causes of many natural effects, which are doubtless inexplicable by the current theories. But I have not dared until now to bring my reasons and refutations into the open, being warned by the fortunes of Copernicus himself, our mater, who procured himself immortal fame among a few, but stepped down among the great crowd. Simplified, the statement merely means that he agreed with Copernicus, but was afraid of what the church's ridicule and punishment may bring him. Luckily for us, Galileo later decided the scientific truth was worth fighting for, and fought even harder to support not only his findings, but others as well, such as Copernicus and Kepler. Galileo addressed his beliefs in a variety of different mediums, acknowledging the risk of advocating of his ideas. Galileo's determination drove him to publish his theories publicly in spite of the dangers. Among Galileo's many published works, Letters of the Solar Spots received the most backlash. These letters challenged the Bible most intensely and were denounced by the friar Father Lorini. Galileo questioned certain passages in the scripture without always providing the scientific proof he was famous for. Galileo particularly challenged Joshua 10:13, which stated, "And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed." His claims enraged the Catholic Church because it directly contradicted the traditional view that the earth stayed still while the sun and moon moved around the earth. A Jesuit saint known as Bellarmine also mocked Galileo, claiming he did not have the necessary evidence to prove the heliocentric theory. Galileo had yet to even prove the observable parallax shifts in the stars. Bellarmine suggested to Galileo he should not advocate his theories until he had proper proof. Should proper proof arise, the Church would supposedly then consider questioning the very beliefs that held their systems together. In other words, it was not likely, according to Bellarmine. However, Galileo did not cease his letter writing. He wrote to Castelli, an Italian mathematician, that the Bible is not meant to be taken literally. It is a book full of parables, metaphors, and figurative suggestions, according to Galileo. He stated the Bible is intended to teach us how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go. Galileo did not necessarily dismiss the existence of God or the accuracy of the Bible. Instead, Galileo separated church and science, an unorthodox approach to religion at the time. Yet, that was not enough for Galileo. He had to keep spreading and expanding upon his ideas. So he sent his next letter to the Duchess Christina. This public avocation and stand against the church led to a charge of heresy. Although he was later cleared of all charges, he was officially prohibited by the church to publicly speak of his research. This forbiddance only further proved to Galileo that he was on the verge of a breakthrough and was more determined than ever to verify his beliefs. Galileo continued to conduct research in the astronomy field. He published dialogue concerning the two chief world systems in 1632, which advocated for a heliocentric theory instead of a geocentric theory. A direct defiance against the church, once again, caused Galileo to face the Inquisition in Rome. Galileo was thus placed under house arrest. At every turn, Galileo was challenged and threatened, but refused to give up. Galileo can take much credit for the scientific discoveries we have today. It is staggering that it can all be traced back to a telescope. This remarkable courageousness and ingenuity of Galileo portrays his heroism and passion for research, even at the risk of repercussions. Through his persistence, he discovered a glimpse of this universe and expanded the horizons of astronomy. The research he conducted enabled him to confirm of a sun-centered universe. He challenged both the church and their teachings of the Bible to fight not only for his beliefs, but the theories of other scientists as well. His endurance and refusal to conform will not be forgotten.